Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. We are starting this session evolving trending electric mobility and B2G. May I please request Mr. Randhir Singh, founder and CEO, 4C Advisors, please join us on the stage. May I please request Mr. Vineet Sikka, MD CSC, Kolkata, if you can join us on the stage. Thank you. Welcome. May I request Mr. Sachin Nijwan, Mr. Sachin Nijwan, if you are around. May I please request Mr. N. Mohan to join us on the stage. Welcome, Mr. Mohan. May I please request Mr. T. Suryakiran Reddy, ED ASRTU, to join us on the stage. May I please request Mr. Anshu Devan, founder IX Energy, please join us on the stage. Thank you. May I please request Mr. Pankaj Goyal, co-founder, CEO, Botanex. I think they have shifted this, so I'll just get them here on board. So we have a very esteemed panel today. I will now hand over to Mr. Randhir to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we wait for somebody or people will join on the way?
We can start and then let me find out when if they're outside.
Done.
They just shifted from a question 2 to question 1. So maybe
No
some
problem.
confusion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there are a lot of things which has changed. It looks like gate change for a flight is similar to that. So earlier the gate was near to this, and now in the next room we are here. This particular session, as far as the EV policies and other things are concerned, now there are several aspects out of this. One is of course the charging part front facing and the back facing. Then we have the vehicles, then we have the now retrofit kits, now we have financing. Several things are there. Over the period of time, government has done a lot in terms of the advanced chemistry cell program, in terms of the auto PLI, FAME 2, remodel FAME 2, then PM E-Drive we have seen the recently which has come out. Still the guidelines are coming around. Then we have the BIS notifications of 17,000 series standards, around 15 to 17 standards are already out. Around 16 standards are right now in discussions. We have the battery swapping gaining the momentum and also coming in the limelight. We have now even the electric bicycles. Some of the states have actually given the incentives for that category also. The new category has been included in the PM E-Drive, which includes the trucks and charging infra for the private also. So a lot of things are going around. Also we have seen the mainstream players from the financing side coming forth and giving the financing not only B2B but even the B2C. For example, the Shriram Finance has come out with a specific product like Shriram Green Finance, which is going to focus particularly giving the lending for entire green area. That means they are not only focusing the charging infra or the vehicles, even the renewables. Even if you are going to put a solar which is going to charge your EVs or the EVCI, that is also being covered in the lending business for the Shriram Green Finance. So it's a very, very welcome move. In fact, that's what being discussed everywhere, that without the financiers on board, it is going to be impossible for this particular momentum to reach to the masses and also to gain the 5% inflection point which we have achieved for the 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers and now even the 4-wheelers. But going forth even for the tractors in the agriculture sector, in fact, yesterday in the NITI meeting, the one point Mr. Ramesh Chand is a member in NITI, he pointed out that it's perfectly fine that EV revolution is touching all aspects of the life, but one aspect which is the agriculture is not being touched as of too much as of now. And I think all those points we will hear during this discussion. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll ask Mohan to introduce himself and then start. Most of you might already be aware who Mohan is and what work he has done in the CSL. Mohan, before starting a question and answer with you, it would be good if quickly we run through the introductions and then we start the discussions.
Sure. Thank you, Randhir. So good afternoon everyone. So basically myself Mohan, I lead the electric vehicle charging infrastructure at CESL. CESL is a public entity. It's a JV of, it's an 100% subsidiary of EESL, which is a parent organization with 4 PSUs under Ministry of Power. So largely like CESL work in the electric mobility segment across the 4 electric vehicles, be it like 4-wheelers, electric buses, charging infrastructures. Presently hold a portfolio of more than 450 EV charging stations. These are public EV charging stations. Apart from this, we also hold the captive EV chargers, which is close to around 600 numbers. We also have 2,000 electric cars which are leased to many government institutions under different lease plan. Apart from this, like CESL has a mandate by Ministry of Heavy Industries, where we are aggregating demand of electric buses from different state transport undertakings. We have done tendering for more than 20,000 electric buses, and more than 12,000 e-buses have been deployed across the country. And this model has been built on the GCC contracting, which is helping STUs to procure electric bus on a service model, which has switched from a typical purchase model to the service model. This is about a company introductions. Now we are also trying to do a scale up of infrastructures, where we are working with the private charge point operators, where CESL is trying to bring in expertise in doing the land aggregations with different land partners like municipalities, metro locations, development authorities. And we are trying to bring in the private CPOs for the implementation. So this model has been implemented in Delhi and Faridabad, and we are expanding to other cities like Lucknow, Chandigarh and Patna soon. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vineet, if you can kindly introduce yourself.
So good afternoon everybody. Vineet Sikka, and I come from CSC. I am the Managing Director Distribution, CSC Limited. So in Calcutta for last 10 months. Prior to that I was the CEO of Rajdhani Power Limited in Delhi. And so you can say around 12-13 years in distribution, and prior to that 26 years on that side, the manufacturing side, the ABB series. Now distribution, why distribution companies sitting here? First of all, so I think it's important that the whole ecosystem should be ready for EVs. Of course, we will discuss during the course of discussions as to how distribution companies can help setting up, though we don't set up EV charging infrastructure, but we facilitate. It's very important that once you set up the EV infrastructure, especially now the megawatt range which will be required, and also the whole ecosystem is changing. We are talking of E2G. Yeah, so distribution companies will have a very important role to play. So we'll discuss during the course of discussion. So just now a brief introduction.
Sure. Mr. Reddy, please. Maybe I should also introduce myself. So some of you might be knowing me. I was the director at Niti Aayog, Electric Mobility Randeep Singh. Before that I was the CFO with the VW Group. Before that I was in Mercedes-Benz, head of strategy and controlling. Yeah, right now I'm running my own company, consulting, as well as one manufacturing firm.
Yeah, good afternoon to you all. I'm Dr. Surya, ready to ignore. That's how it came. And I represent public bus transport in India. We operate about 150,000 buses in India right now. And personally, I have over 30 years of experience in public bus transport. And very rare thing that I did my PhD in public bus transport also. And for discussions we can have other points to go. Thank you.
My name is Anshu Diwan. I'm the founder and CEO of IXL Energy. Our goal was to basically develop low-cost fuel-saving technologies that would be economically viable for the Indian market. So we initially started with hybrid electrics for the longer distances, trucks and buses where infrastructure is not available. And for the last mile, we have developed kits which can convert existing trucks and buses into pure electric. Our goal again is that if we can have a circular economy, we should think broadly in the concept of reduce, reuse and recycle, where instead of scrapping trucks which are reaching NGT mandated end of life, why not just upcycle them and reuse them for as electric vehicles? So that's the paradigm, and both from a cost and from environmental perspective, it actually makes immense sense. So we can discuss hopefully some of this also. Thank you.
Thanks, Anshu. And in fact, I'll start with you only. Retrofit kits, as such, so central government, of course, right now doesn't give any incentive for the retrofit kits. But we have seen recently some of the state governments have included retrofit kits as part of the, their incentive program. So two questions. One is, how do you see the landscape evolving without the incentives from the central government? And how the state governments are seeing so much potential in it? And and do you also want to request some of the other state governments also to include this across the sector, or particularly in bus and trucks?
That's a great question. So in my presentation that I give, I always show the photograph of an e-rickshaw, which started plying in Delhi in 2012. Before any incentives or infrastructure, they were actually not even legal, but they started plying because it made economic sense, right? It literally tripled the earning potential of the driver, and he didn't have to spend so much of effort in earning that much of money, right? So if economics is aligned, then automatically adoption will happen. Incentives will obviously be the cherry on the cake, so we would always welcome it. And to all governments, be it state or central, my submission is, do not be biased against any sort of technology. You should just set certain sort of norms which dictate maybe carbon reduction, or maybe that if it's zero emission, we'll incentivize without distinguishing between new and old. Because in India, I always cite the example that there is a very pricey Nike showroom in Connaught Place that pays 14 lakh rupees rent every month. It's doing great business, and there's a shoe seller right outside the showroom and sitting on the pavement, they're also doing good business. And India needs both. So I'm saying that while the new EVs definitely should get incentivized, why be biased? Because we are all trying to reduce carbon emissions ultimately for India, right? We have to meet certain targets. So why discriminate one technology over the other as long as the end goal is the same?
Definitely, if safety parameters and other things are well taken care of, then for no reason we should be having...
That's right, and I think that's a great point you've touched. Quickly, I'll just elaborate. We have to meet almost all the requirements that go in the safety of an electric vehicle. EIS 123 Part 3 with evolving standards are there. We meet all of them before we even get the certificate. And sir is sitting here, CIRT, ICAT, all of them are adhering to those standards, right?
So, perfect. So as an association for SRTUs, what type of TCO you are seeing, what type of cost you are seeing when it comes to the new buses vis-a-vis the retrofit ones? This is one. Second thing is, of course, the drivers needs to be trained. And you also work on the upskilling of the drivers, right? And that is a big, we read some news, with the EV buses, what has happened in the Maharashtra. So what are your thoughts and what type of work ASRTU is doing to address these issues?
Just to begin with, the costing TCO is called. A new bus is costing market price 1.5, government says 1.1, 1.2. So okay, there's a problem there, but assume that it is 1.1 crores electric buses. Capex is going to be tough for any STU to buy a bus. So paradigm shift has happened. PPP has come in, GCC model has been set in, and then people going in for manufacturer operator kind of model. If you look at retrofitment, there are two issues there again. Batteries, anyway, both which is that 40% component of either be retrofitment or be a new bus. So the cost of even retrofitting of a bus, diesel bus also is going up to 70 lakhs almost. We worked out a cost of about 70 lakhs, which is again very high capex. If something like battery swapping comes in, recently a company has come in here in India offering battery swapping services to buses also. There the cost is really going to go down. It would capex would be about approximately 25 lakhs, and then it will be an OpEx model where battery as a service is being offered to the STU. That's going to probably work better than really going for a retrofitment of powertrain and battery together. These technologies, of course, we have 150,000 buses, out of which right now we have achieved numbers of 10,000 above electric buses in India. And they're growing by day. Probably another 2 years down the lane, we would have another 20,000 buses being, if everything goes well, supplies are good, then we'll have another 20,000 buses coming in. After that, what is one question you need to answer? Because the manufacturer-operator model is going to put a stop there, and the financier has to come in, as you were saying just now, the financier has to come in. If a financier comes in and he, along with an operator, along with the manufacturer, offers bus services, then there's going to be another leap in the number of buses pushed by the government. Talking about drivers, we recently did a small survey in DTC, where we see here all the electric buses. None of the drivers know about those vehicles, unfortunately. Because DTC, I should be saying, but then ultimately DTC thinks that they're in the private domain. The drivers and the buses in private domain, so their responsibility is little less than normal DTC buses. That's really hampering. Private operator doesn't want to spend money on training, continuously training these drivers. This is going to be a huge problem we're going to face. One is crunch of drivers across the country. Electric bus drivers, crunch is going to be there huge across the country because 20,000 buses are going to come in. Drivers are not going to be produced the way we look at it right now. And training part of it. Induction training as well as refreshers training. This is where ASRD, we have started after say 60 years. Right now we have started going in for training of drivers. Earlier we had an organization called PCRA which used to train the drivers across the country, that they've shut down because it's diesel. So now ASRTC had to forcibly take up drivers training, and I've been doing it in UPSRTC, RSRTC, DTC. We've done so far, and also I've started in South in Kerala, we started recently. But this is the area where we need a lot of help from many organizations to come in, manufacturers to come in, operators to take interest. Otherwise, the safety issues are going to come up. Sooner or later, safety issues are going to come up because drivers are really not trained for it. Even the existing drivers themselves are not trained for it.
Agreed. In fact, NSTC, ASTC also need to come forward for the skilling and at both ends. In fact, not only the drivers but also the maintenance of that. That is also very important aspect.
Very true. All the organizations, whoever they are, we need to come together. Come with a common curriculum, come with a common, training schedule so that everybody learns the same. Manufacturers, I really it's a disappointment because they're not really coming forward to train the drivers.
Right. So coming to Mohan, you have worked a lot as far as the charging is concerned. But now, the megawatt hour level charging is evolving when we talk about the buses, the trucks and all. And recently we have read the news about the BYD announcing. But of course, we already have the exponent here in India who already does the megawatt hour level of charging. How do you think the EVCI has to adopt? What about the public charging which has been established by the CESL already? How they are going to be utilized? Already when it was established, the utilization was 6 to 7%. How do you think the economics will work and what things will be required, the back-end infra as well as the front-end infra for this megawatt hour level charging?
That's right. So if you look at the last 3.5 years of journey of charging infrastructure, India has seen like multiple connectors. It was one of the bigger issues like India has faced while adopting the electric vehicles. We are seeing like multiple connectors, multiple capacities. So now we are seeing a kind of a consolidation in the vehicle segment. Especially if you look at four-wheelers and heavy-duty vehicles, we are seeing consolidations where without a mandate from the government, the OEMs themselves adopting the CCS2 connectors, which is giving a kind of confidence for the CPOs to build up more charging network. Right now the priority in the country is to expand the charging network, and we are seeing the transition from say 30 kilowatt CCS2 connectors. Now we are seeing like close to like 240 kilowatt CCS2 connectors which are dominantly deployed for e-buses. And with respect to, there are two scenarios which could be like briefed here. One, the site-specific issues are there, where DISCOM could have an issue in getting those grid access when we talk about say like a megawatt scale and charging infrastructure, which perhaps I think there is a limitations for setting up such huge infrastructure within some of the existing parking locations. We have seen in the city-specific geography, we have seen a lot of penetration of this lower capacity infrastructure ranging from say 30 kilowatt to 60 kilowatt and maybe up to an extent of 120 kilowatt capacity chargers, where DISCOMs are more comfortable extending those grid access. They see like their existing nearby transformers have sufficient load, from there they can supply power to these up to say 120 kilowatt or maybe like 150 kilowatt capacity EV chargers quite conveniently. But there is a specific use case which you can think, especially in the electric bus segment. If you look at the CSL expertise also in demand aggregation, and where we are tendering for more than 20,000 e-buses. So one of the fascinating aspect being the depot infrastructure. Typically if you look at any city, typically would have say like 100 to 150 kind of electric buses in a depot. And even if I hypothetically consider 50 buses in a smaller city, 50 buses typically considering like 5 buses would require say one EV charger. And typically the bus charger is of around 240 kilowatt capacity with dual consistent connectors. Even like with 50 buses, bus depot would have close to 2.5 megawatt of connected load. So that is the kind of infrastructure distribution company would build for providing the infrastructure for operating a 50 electric buses. Think of 100 numbers, it's almost like 5 megawatt load. 5 megawatt of concentrated load is being built up in a bus depot. Right now the issue is like the bus operates in a defined route and defined timings. And many of the day timings in a day, the infra remains like available for no use, because like bus operates typically say from 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. These are peak hours where bus will go out for taking the trips. But there is a lean time from say 9 to 12 p.m. in the afternoon, or maybe from 4 to till 9 p.m. there is a lean time where the infra becomes like of no use, because these are meant for captive applications. So I think instead of like rebuilding and expanding the charging network, I think emphasis has to be there to at least like reuse the existing infrastructure that is missing in the present context. We talk about megawatt scale charging. See, already we have the megawatt infrastructure in the bus depots. It's like a kind of a concept we need to pitch in, where we can put up a single dispensing unit of which can pump in like 1 megawatt power to an electric bus. But on the contrary, the bus has to be capable of drawing so much of power from these high infrastructure. So I think that right now we need to prioritize two things separately. One, at the city level, let's look at putting up say around say 150 kilowatt capacity EV chargers, which could suffice like the passenger and the commercial electric vehicles. And maybe I think that the bus depots, where I think we are putting up the huge infrastructure in megawatt scale, there I think we need to experiment with putting up a higher capacity fast charger in perhaps I think in collaboration with the OEMs also, because technology has to be there in the bus also to take up so much of power from these high capacity chargers. I think the depot becomes a real good case for putting on this megawatt scale charger, which can be demonstrated. And I think since these can charge this person in lesser time, I think perhaps this could also be built for a specific use case for making it as a semi-public charging station. Instead of like restricting as a captive use application, let's look at the depot infra becomes available for other users. I think this will help in having a better proliferation for the private bus operators and maybe like the upcoming electric truck also. Because right now the private bus operators are apart from putting capex on operating these electric buses, they're also putting up their own captive charging station. So I think we need to look at strategy where this existing infra could be better optimized, and this could be made available for larger electric vehicle EV users.
Right. In fact, when 240 kilowatt of the charger under the PME drive is going to come up on the highways, every one charging plaza is going to have the megawatt hour level of the charge to 14 to 5, right? So that type of requirement is going to come. It's a very, I think, without the back-end infra, why I asked particularly with the Mohan, so our experience during NITI and in fact CSL also has this experience, getting the back-end infra for the charging point is actually a very cumbersome process, and whatever is on paper is one thing, but what comes actually is the another thing. Maybe 3x or the 4x of the time. Sometimes it takes a lot of time. The equipment is there, everything is there, the parking is there, but the back-end infra is an issue. And now when the high power is required, wherein even the changing of the transformer, other things are concerned, and a lot of money goes into this. Even the deposits are very high. So whatever strategies and what you are planning, whatever demands you are seeing coming from the CPO for the companies who wants to put up the charging infra. One. Second thing is, now the renewable integration has to happen, right? Wherein the price which you are going to charge to the EVSE and the operators is going to be determined on the basis of what type of power you are having at the back end. So what are the strategies behind this, and what are you planning, and how you are going to pass on the benefits?
Well, it's a, let me just brief you about the distribution, how we are, distribution sector is getting ready for the EV infrastructure. Very rightly pointed out by Mohan that a bus infrastructure in a bus depot remains idle for maybe 10 hours, 12 hours, and it is charged only during the balance portion. Same is the situation with the distribution companies. Every distribution. Now I'm the second distribution company. I was in Delhi earlier, now in Calcutta. Situation is same. You set up the infrastructure for electricity based on the peak demand. Now Delhi last year touched 8,000 megawatts, and this year projections are 9,000 megawatts. Calcutta area which we cater, CSC, is last year was 2,728 megawatts. And this year it is forecast to be 2,850 megawatts. Now this 2,850 megawatt in Calcutta or 8,000 megawatt in Delhi, can somebody assume in 365 days, for how many days? Very few days, few number of days, maybe 15 days, 20 days. That means we are building an infrastructure. It's like a highway which is built up at crores of rupees, but it is being used only for 15-20 days in a year, to full capacity, and balance year it is all empty. So this is all public money. Same is the situation here. What he mentions that we're spending huge money, huge efforts. He mentioned very difficult, So the charger stations are lying, unutilized. So keeping that in mind, and of course you rightly mentioned that especially the depot charging stations which are for buses, the bus companies or bus operators must find a way out how do we use those stations during the off-peak. Off-peak is the bus off-peak, bus depot off-peak, when buses are not being charged. Maybe you can allow certain what you call car operators, carpool operators like Blue Smart or other Snappy's in Calcutta. Some people
They have the parking plazas which are.
They are parking plazas, so they are setting up their own infrastructure. They are captive because they don't want any gap in that, because that's their bread and butter. So same way these bus depots can be utilized for certain government policies. Most of the bus depots will be government owned, so government can come out with certain policies of peak, off-peak. Same way from the distribution side, I will say distribution companies have a big skew in terms of megawatt capability and in terms of MU capabilities. So there's a big skew. Like I mentioned, highway used only 15-20 days in a year. So as a result, what will happen? You are building your highway for megawatt, say 5,000 megawatt or 8,000 megawatt, while you're using it only for 5,000 megawatts. So the state regulators can also come out with certain more time of the day incentives. They are TOD policies, but they're very standard type of policies. The TOD policies will vary from city to city. Right? We Delhi need a different type of TOD policy. That means even bus operators can charge their buses when the DISCOM is at the off-peak. Because if you start charging buses, or your fleet operators can start charging buses or their cars at say in the night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the summer, the whole system will be crowded. So maybe the regulators can work out some policies, some special incentives, TOD incentives, so that the cars or the buses are charged during the off-peak. Yeah, that's one. Now coming to your question, it is very difficult. No, actually it is not difficult, because see, as you go higher in the ratings, what happens? If you go above 4 MVA, you have to have a 33 kV connection. And 33 kV connection means you have to set up a whole substation, the grid. And that is as per state regulations. 11 kV is up to a particular level. Small chargers, 415 is up to. But when you say buses, 230 kilowatt ka one bus, 100 buses to be charged, you end up with a MVA capacity of around 5 MVA plus. In Delhi, there are many bus depots with 5 MVA plus. So 33 kV substations, the grids has to be set up. Now again, question is that grid will be used only half an hour, or maybe with the fast chargers, or half the time. So that I think the state governments or the bus operators need to work out how they can offload this thing. Second also could be that these substations or grids can also be, if the distribution companies have some capacities in their existing grids. So that also can be, discussed with distribution companies whether they need to set up a new substation altogether or existing capacities. It's quite possible certain distribution companies in certain areas will have some grids which are not fully utilized. Maybe some connectivity from that grid can be used. Now coming to your question of renewable energy, of course the renewable energy will be replacing the brown power slowly in the times to come. The distribution companies are supposed to make their RPO applications also. So that will only affect the cost of charging. That will not affect the cost of infrastructure. Cost of infrastructure will be as per regulation. The state regulator decides how much a 33 kV substation will cost, how much 11 kV will cost. So it will depend on that. The renewable energy only will change the cost of energy, which might impact the price of charging infrastructure also. That again regulator has to decide. Yeah. But I think in the times to come, I feel with a lot of EVs coming in, and I was reading the V2G, which ISGF has tried out now. This is going to play a big role. Maybe we are talking nowadays of battery storage in the distribution companies. I'm sure few years down the line, when as the population of EVs will increase, all your multi-level parkings will be like a battery bank. And again, the regulators can work out certain very attractive off-peak tariffs for the customers. Because if, for example, you take Nehru Place, there is a huge parking lot with some 5,000 cars. If all are EV there, we assume, and good tariffs can be worked out off-peak. Because cars are parked there for maybe 7-8 hours while people are working in the offices. So that way I think if it is done, the end consumer will end up gaining. Because once you discharge the cars, then you have to, DISCOM will pay you. And once you charge the car, you have to pay. So if you net off everything, the cost of charging the car will reduce dramatically.
Right. In fact, I'll come back to you on the battery storage at the DISCOM level and also the V2X which you talked about. There's a, there's a caveat how the vehicles can be discharged, because that is the time actually when everybody anticipates that my vehicle is going to be charged when I'm in office. So other way or the other round utilization is challenging, but definitely I'll come back to you. Before that, Mr. Devan, regarding the retrofit kits, two things I think it would be interesting for everyone to know. One is about the safety standards, which you can elaborate, not only for the particularly buses and all, but also in addition to the safety requirements, how the insurance, as well as if somebody wants to have the financing on the buses, whose name is going to be the on the, that is a big issue. And right. I understand for the buses and the trucks is fine. What about the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers? How this is right. handled?
Okay, so I'll answer that. So with insurance, so it's interesting. When we went for our ARAI certification, we were told that now we are the OEM.
And also because I want to understand whether the policy is clear from that perspective or not.
Yeah, so there's definitely a little bit of confusion. So we were told we are the OEM now, and we have to now be responsible for creating the customer handbook and be responsible for any and all service related issues. So definitely, as far as the test agencies are concerned, they consider us the OEM. But when it comes time to the RTOs, then they will look at what was the registration originally, and they will just put that only. So there is an ambiguity there. So I'm the secretary of the Indian Automotive Retrofitters Association. We have 27 members in two-wheelers, three-wheelers and four-wheelers and buses. And our goal, our paradigm is that we are advocating uniform policies which are known all the way at the center and the state, and for all different agencies. And we have a bunch of policy change requirements that we are trying to work with various forums, be it MHI, be it NITI Aayog, different places, so that this can become smoother, right? And your question on safety, again I will emphasize, we have to meet and adhere to all the test requirements that any of the other brand new electric vehicles have to meet. So without meeting those standards, they will not allow us to get the certification. And be it center of gravity, be it front and rear axle weight, be it thermal runaway alarms, AIS 038, all of these are being complied with before we getting a certificate.
Right, 038 revision 2 and 156 you have to comply.
Now that's the latest one that's come out.
Yes.
Yes.
One more question. What type of vehicles are the target for the retrofit? Is the end of life?
Right. So so for basically trucks, the 6.5 ton GVW trucks that we are focusing, we are saying that yes, see, this end of life is a misnomer because it's an NGT mandated end of life, right? 10 years. I mean, trucks outside NGT norms run for 25-30 years, right? We went to a very large logistics company based in Hubli, and we asked them, "Sir, aapki purani trucks hame de do, we need to convert them." And they said, "What do you mean by old trucks?" I said 10 years. They said 25-26 saal tak hamari trucks chalti hai, right? So the point we make is that trucks have a long life. They are built to last. It's only because of pollution that these trucks are being restricted to run, which is great, which is what we need to do. Our goal is, instead of scrapping them or letting them run in tier 3 cities, why not upgrade them and allow them to continue running in the tier 1 cities where we need them. And the cost, sir, Surya Kiran sir already highlighted, a new electric bus is 1.1 CR, a retrofitted one is, let's say, 60-70 lakhs, right? We've done the costing, sir, it's even cheaper now. Point is, at least it's cheaper. It's in the step in the right direction, right? If India is serious about adoption of electric vehicles, then every step towards that direction should be something we should welcome.
Agreed. By the way, just to clarify to you, end of life is not only because of the pollution, it has many other aspects. Because over the period of time, the safety aspects and all things, in addition to this, gets built in. So for example, now even the cabin is mandated, other things are getting mandated, blower is mandated, maybe future the AC might be mandated. So, all these things keep
So
on.
that is already being built in. So for example, today the standards for electric side is updated.
Right.
So now we have to adhere to the new ones. So as soon as new standards come, let's say air conditioning comes, we'll get that installed also.
Correct.
Right?
So that's what I want to
Exactly.
understand.
That's a great point.
So, Mr. Reddy, now you pointed out that you are very much, from the cost perspective, they are very close to the diesel buses when it comes to the retrofit. Is it true? One. Second thing is, how does the organizations or the SRTUs see, the new buses vis-a-vis this in terms of not only the cost but the performance? Because when it comes to the SRTU, and I understand that end of life vehicles must be, humongous. I think 150,000 odd buses you run, right? What would be the aging if we just want to, segregate them into 2 to 3 parts?
Just to start with, say, aging, I'll say. We have about 30,000 buses crossing 10 years of age. About 2 to 3,000 buses crossing 15 years of age. 15 years is threshold, if I say so, because be it electric bus or be it CNG bus or be it any bus, public bus has to be scrapped for 15 years. Same is not the case with private bus. That's one area where retrofitment is becoming a difficult decision for STUs to take. You need to scrap it 15 years, why would go for a retrofit? And then if you look at costing for retro is a technology that needs to be used to convert the existing buses. It's a hastening process towards electrification of buses. It's not a technology which is to be adopted. And ultimately, the new buses have to come into the system. Only new buses should take way forward. But retro gives an option to quickly convert some buses, at least 10,000 buses over a period of 2-3 years, to match with the other ecosystem. There we see some other issues are also there. Interoperability of chargers. We can just at the moment, manufacturers don't allow other chargers to be used. They don't allow other buses to be charged on their chargers. That needs to be sorted out.
What about the policy discrepancies between the states in terms of supporting the new buses as well as the the wet lease and the dry lease? What is being preferred by the private sector?
No, sorry to interrupt. The retrofitted buses in India, there are only 3 buses which are on the road.
New, I'm talking about the new.
New ones. New ones, every STU wants to go in for electric buses, no doubt about it. It's just that ways and means. Some STUs are preferring to go through CESL route and come up with tenders. Some STUs are going directly to tenders, like Maharashtra has gone for its own tenders.
So there's any preferred traction?
Except Tamil Nadu, every state is really pushing it high. Now Tamil Nadu also has gone for 100 buses. So there's a beginning there also. What I would say is out of 150,000 buses, if you say Deccan Plateau, it's 1 lakh, almost 100,000 buses in the Deccan Plateau alone. So if these few states in the south start pushing it high, the rest of the country will start having more number of buses, yes.
Mohan, final words from you. In terms of the localization, how it has been transformed over the years in EVCI is one. Second thing is, do you think that the connector standardization is something which this is the right time to be taken care of, or we should still wait for some more time? Because as a norm, CCS2 is already there. Having said that, there are other companies which has come out with the innovative connectors with a high power charging already. What are your views on why should we leave like this?
So if you look at the localization element in the EV chargers, I think more than 50% has been achieved in the DC type of chargers. And I think more than 75%.
Sorry to interrupt. And also the comparison with the PMP.
Yeah, so maybe I think the MHI has come out with the phased manufacturing program. So where they're mandating the component level localization. So some of the components like rectifiers, still they have time till December. But if you look at overall ecosystem of the EV chargers, I think when we spoke with many of the industry partners, they said in the DC chargers they're able to achieve more than 50%, at least minimum 50% has been achieved. In AC charging it is more than 75%. I think we're on the right path of localization because it needs strengthening of the supply chain components also. If you look at the earlier 2018 or 2019 chargers, so we had most of these CKD and SKD kind of components which used to import from neighboring countries, other countries, and majorly the assembling used to happen in India. But now we see a lot of innovation in the charger itself. We talk about now the smart charging capability chargers. Now we talk about Wi-Fi, RFID. We talk about OCPP compliant technologies in the chargers. So I think to some extent I feel India is in the right path of achieving the localization. I think compliments to the phased manufacturing program too. And with respect to how this further could be improved in terms of connectors. See, I think the government has taken in good step in terms of allowing companies to at least agree on specific standards. We have seen in four-wheelers where OEMs have themselves gone for CCS2 connectors. So now which has helped industry the CPO partners to build up more charging networks. So initially we had multiple connectors. We used to build up Bharat DC connectors, we used to build up CharDemo connectors, we used to build up CCS2 connectors. Now we have a clarity in the CPO industry to at least look at CCS2 as one of the prominent connectors which has been widely accepted and agreed by the auto electric vehicle OEM. This is one. Second thing, I think the same thing is happening in the electric two-wheelers too. So initially the two-wheelers we had only the Bharat AC connectors which is more like a 3.3 kilowatt 3-pin sockets. But now we see a type 6 and type 7 connectors where the two-wheelers have a DC charging capabilities. But I think this is the right time for industry also to at least agree on a specific standard instead of working with multiple standards. And specifically on the megawatt scale charging or maybe proprietary connectors, this is a more in specific application or use cases we could look at, because when you talk about megawatt scale, this would require a specific cooling arrangement. We have a specific battery technology in the electric vehicles too. I think there the use cases are limited. I think looking the mass adoption of electric vehicles which the country presently needs, we should looking at least enabling the ecosystem first rather mandating or restricting innovation in the current ecosystem. I think that India is going the right path. And just to give an example, just again go back to the electric bus as one of the use case here. If you look at the earlier electric buses, we had majorly the GBT connectors. When CSL come out with demand aggregations, we started looking at what could be standardized. So one of the specific thing we did was like studying the specification of the bus connectors. So we said like the CCS would be the connectors which all the OEMs has to provide. This has helped in even achieving the interoperability amongst the multiple bus operators. If you look at like when we do the demand aggregation for the STUs, we'll be having like multiple OEMs, maybe like 3 or 4 OEMs will be supplying these electric buses to STUs and will be operating these buses across multiple bus depots. Since we have a common connectors and common charging infrastructure, now there is a strong case for interoperability, which means like any bus can go to any of the bus depots and can get charged unless there is a restriction on the STU side. But this I think standardization help in achieving the bus companies also to look at the connector standardization, and even the same thing has been like I think adopted in the private segment too. We see a lot of intercity applications too, where people are expanding rapidly and adopting more number of e-buses for their fleet requirement, and even CPOs are complementing by adding like necessary like destination charging and also like the midway charging efficiently. And specifically, I think I think it's almost like I feel like still there is a way of another 6 to 1 year time frame where we could see a lot of like megawatt scale charging which would come up definitely in country. I think it's more about the back-end infrastructure which is a clear concern for CPOs to expand. I think putting up charging station of different capacity is much feasible, but we need to have a reliable power supply from the grid infrastructure side, which is a key element for CPO business.
Right. Thanks, Mohan. And lastly and finally, final words from you. Coming back to the BESS, and I understand that CSC has partnered with some firm for provision of the battery energy storage solution. Can you elaborate more on that? And one specific question: how at substation level you see the BESS coming up? What type of capacities and other things?
CSC has not partnered with anybody on the battery, but we are exploring to have a battery storage of 40 megawatt and maybe more also.
Substation level?
At substation level, yes. See, for a distribution company, like I mentioned, the demand management is the main key. And in the peaks like 3 p.m. peak or 11 o'clock night peaks, the network gets stressed too much, and you have to import power also from the transmission lines. Lines also are congested that time. So that was the idea that the distribution companies put up the battery energy storage systems within their substations. Of course, DISCOMs tried in small levels also, in Delhi also, and I was there that in Calcutta also, small levels, 100 kilowatt spread out, but maybe that's not enough. So a large megawatt range battery energy storage is required. That's one. Second type of battery energy storage could be in the generation side, where we have firm dispatchable renewable energy commitments are there. So with RE plants, battery storage can be there. But from demand side management point of view, from the catering to the peaks and also energy arbitrage, the distribution companies can put up. Delhi is one good example. Sridhar is sitting here. I think they have a 20 megawatt, which was financed by GAP. So battery storage, I think, is going to come. This is a must nowadays.
Right, and I mean, over the period of time, it will also become a sweat asset which might need to be utilized for some other purposes.
Yeah, like energy arbitrage is one, like you mentioned.
Correct.
Or like Mr. Pillai said, now V2G, successfully ISG has tried just for sake of repetition. Mr. Pillai, I'm saying, we will have, I think, in times to come, I can foresee, I'll repeat, you are not there, large parking lots with V2G can be a large battery bank for DISCOMs in times to come, wherein all 5,000 cars will be battery EV vehicles, and you will have a huge battery bank, not battery energy storage system, but in terms of vehicles, in the times to come. And I was reading your article on the school buses also, and that was also an excellent idea. School buses are not used for maybe in summer section, summer holidays are there, buses are not used. So
but of course, the cost is a bigger aspect, and cycle life as far as the change and other things.
I think the costs will come down eventually. Now you see the battery energy storage 2 years back, which was 1 crore rupees per megawatt per year. Now it crashed to how much? 27 lakhs.
Almost 85%.
Or VGF is not required. I mean, that's what is coming in.
Right. Great. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and it was a very nice discussion. We have covered the EVCI, we have covered the back-end power infra, we have covered the retrofits, and of course how the SRTUs are going to adopt for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would now request Mr. Sikka or Mr. Reggie Pillai, President IASF, to facilitate mementos to Mr. Vinit Sikka, Mr. Randhir Pratap, Mr. T. Suryakiran Reddy, Mr. N. Mohan, Mr. Anshu Diwan, thank you everyone. So we'll